Welcome to another Sunday Superversive live stream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and today we will be discussing things with my co host, Anthony Marchetta, about certain Shonen Jump that are leaving the magazine soon, probably. The good ones leave, but the bad ones stay, alack, alas, such is life. Fabricant 100 probably do retry, maybe a few others here and there. We'll see. We'll see. Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Work has started and everything is going well.
I bet you've named all the cows and which order you want to have them butchered.
I do. I was telling. This is a real conversation that my father had with me. He goes, if we went to like an Asian country, he goes, would you eat dogs if they
Eh,
if it was a thing that they served? And I thought about it and I said, yeah, probably. And my father was horrified that I actually said that I would. He was like, but why? I'm like, they're just animals. It's like I like dogs, but if we lived in a country that raised pigs, I would as pets. It wouldn't bother me. I'd still eat pig. Uh
always my problem with dogs is always the torturous preparations they go through.
I mean, yes, but also once you go down that rabbit hole, you're liable to become vegetarian pretty quick.
Nope,
Eh,
nope,
just
nope,
no
nope.
dog.
No, no dog as prepared by the Chinese.
Ah, I see.
You have to understand, it's all about the preparations. Uh,
Yeah, I have no problem in principle with eating dog. I'll put it that way. I wouldn't because I like dogs, but it's like that's not a principled objection. That's a personal objection.
yep. So today we are here for a much more serious conversation, and that is some manga are leaving Shonen Jump. One for sure, and a couple are thematically running towards it. Um, the big one being Fabricant 100 posted its last chapter today, which was absolutely fantastic in all the best ways. Quite frankly,
Hmm.
Fabricant 100 had no reason to be as good as it was. Um, but it was very good. It was very worth it. And in general, I'm pleased that it was in the Shonen Jump. Um, yeah, just in its entirety. The story, for those who don't know, uh, a doctor creates 100 Frankensteins who in an attempt to do something. We will discuss what he was attempting to do later. Um, and throughout
Well,
it,
the story calls it from like chapter one, attempting to create the ideal human.
yes. Uh, but there's more to that
Yes,
than
but
meets
that's
the
what the
eye.
story. Yeah,
Yes.
that's how they frame it from the beginning.
Unfortunately, all the fabricants are created well, let me put it this way. They open their eyes and their creator says another failure. So on, so forth. Down from number 1 to number 100. So they are imbued not only with the failure of what the doctor was trying to do, but also the knowledge that daddy views them as a failure. Eventually, they are unleashed into the world after the death of the doctor, and they go about stealing organs and components of people so that they may become the perfect human and fulfill the doctor's will. The story begins where the Fabricants attack the Yao family, which is noted to having particularly fine genetics. And the head, the last Yao man standing, convinces them convinces Fabricant 100 that if she will help him hunt down other Fabricants, he will willingly give himself to her to be chopped up and used as organs and limbs and so on. Uh, yeah, no, that's a fantastic premise. Absolutely fantastic premise. And it shouldered quite a bit of burden for what it was. It was never pushed into the sublime, at least as I understand it, because sublime moments. A good one is um, Shiggy coming out of his uh, uh,
Hibernation.
hibernation capsule as if he is a god. Or Luffy going into Gear 5, just to name two relatively recent examples.
Yeah, I would agree that Fabricant 100 never reached the Sublime, but on the other hand, it only had 30, what was it, 36 or 37?
37, I
Uh
think.
yeah, it only had 37 chapters though, and it had reached some it was a very, very solid series. Like I was pretty disappointed it was canceled. I thought it had the potential to keep going. I didn't think that it had to be. I honestly would have loved to see an anime adaptation of it as well, which I
Same.
think, yeah, I think it really had the potential for a really good anime. Uh, but it didn't reach the level of the Sublime, which yes, My Hero Academia did. I think on a few occasions. I think it did in especially the anime version of this, the All Might versus All for One fight at Camino Ward. Uh, I think the anime version of honestly one of the anime version of this fight is honestly one of my favorite fight scenes in any medium. It's absolutely fantastic. Let's see. I'm looking at this chess game and I'm like, okay, interesting. Ooh, no, I'm good. Okay, I'm gonna do this
Yep.
anyway. Uh, yeah, the All Might versus All for One fight at Camino Ward. Shiggy's awakening in the war arc. I think that Dobby's reveal comes close, so I'm not sure if sublime is the right word for it. Uh, that when Dobby reveals that he's what was the thing? Now I'm blanking on like the plot beats.
That he
Whatever.
was the
You know what I mean?
son of uh,
Endeavor. Yeah.
Endeavor.
Yes. 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 Yeah. When he reveals he's the son of Endeavor, that's a. I don't know if sublime is the right word for that moment, but it was an incredibly well done moment, regardless. Let's see. What else am I missing? Yeah, My Hero Academia didn't have a ton of them, but they happened. Fabricant 100 never quite got there, but it did have some moments of real horror and real pathos
Yep.
that came very close. And there was also, like, if you read the final two chapters, at least to me, there are very clear signs here that he knew exactly where he was going with this from the beginning, which is very impressive. You would be shocked at the number of Shonen Jump series that don't really have a clear plan for how they're going to end.
Yep.
Uh, it's kind of unbelievable. But
I could
this one,
tell
go ahead.
I could tell just by how they paced out the final chapter that this guy knew exactly how it was going to go. Like it was rushed because it needed some
Mhm.
time to cook, but at the same time, like when you're not given time, you just got to play your cards. Uh, and in this case, I think he played his cards as well as could be expected. Um, in the circumstances, better, honestly, better than he
Yeah,
had any
yeah,
right to.
I would fully agree with that. I would say going by the final couple of chapters, it is incredibly impressive how he managed to keep everything like the word that I would think of is like thematically coherent.
Yep.
Uh, right? Like the way I'm gonna spoil some things, but honestly, I don't think that the stuff that I'm going to spoil is so obvious. I think that you could probably have figured it out from chapter one. Like the way he kills off number 100, I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was a really clever way to do it. And it was pretty obvious in the final chapter that she was going to die, and in killing number 99, it was number 99, right?
Number one.
It was number one. Okay, yeah, sorry. She was going. It was pretty obvious she was going to die when she was killing Fabricant number one. Uh, like that was the plan. But I think that the way that the creator did it, elevated the moment to something that was actually like pretty clever.
Yep.
Yeah, and just generally, like the whole reveal of the second to last chapter was such a smart reveal. Like it's such a cool idea for the story that I was really impressed with the way it was handled. And there was just generally like I read chapter one, and chapter one of Fabricant 100 was okay,
Mm-hmm.
but the concept was amazing, right?
Yes.
And I remember like pointing it out to you and going like, follow this because I love this idea. It's like Victorian Blade Runner with magical realism, yeah. And you were like, I don't know, and like I don't think it'll hit, but credit to them. Like it really did improve as it went on. Like it got better and better. Uh, there was a whole lot going on in Fabricant 100. A lot of really interesting stuff. It's really a shame that it ended. Yeah, the way
Mm.
that it did, that it ended so suddenly, because you get that stuff like in the final chapter. They have the whole, oh yeah, and there was a big fight, but we won. Uh, right, because they just didn't have time. Like,
Yeah.
oh, oh, I'm gonna do something. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Boom. It's not. Now you save your. You actually save your knight with the only legal move. That's a ridiculous looking position. It looks so dumb, but you have one legal move, and it saves your knight. You are very lucky. Okay. Whatever. Anyway, yeah, I was a fan of Fabricant 100 from the beginning. I was very happy that it was getting better. I was really looking forward to where the story went. Like I liked honestly, there wasn't really an arc that I actively disliked, and the characters were interesting enough that I was interested in seeing like where they would go with them, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in seeing what they would do with them. I liked the direction that they took. Hmm. I'm looking at this chess game. Ha ha ha. Bam. It does give your king a little bit of breathing room now, though.
That's
But
the
okay,
idea.
okay. Anyway, yeah, like so. It's too bad that it ended like it did. I guess that something about the concept was a little bit too out there. People couldn't resonate with it. I don't know. Uh, but at the same time, I was very impressed with how well it wrapped up the story. The rushing aside, like
Right.
that they had to rush things. Like, okay, you can't do anything with that. It was never going to do everything it possibly could.
Right. There's a whole lot of interesting stuff, and I'll say it outright though. But there's a lot of stuff that I just kind of feel that people kind of don't that people kind of exaggerate how much is actually needed for. Like a good thing is like developing the concepts. No, you have to state something first, and the stated thing was these fabricants have no connection to humanity other than part storage. They will kill even friends of theirs, quote unquote. They will not stop. Um, there is, there's only murder in their hearts. Uh, and what happens is that people, some characters forget that. Some people try to use that. but it tends to get lost. How little these creatures care for humanity. Number one, most of all, for the simple reason is that he learned all the different techniques that the doctor used, and try to advance and do things in his own way. And in the end, he's given a choice to change his nature. In fact, both him and 100 are given chances to change their innate natures, but both of them refuse it. 100 chooses to just bury everything the doctor did by killing herself in number one, along with, I presume, the notes and stuff that she had been reading ahead of time. In the end, there is no record of what the doctor did, and she did it for herself. Selfishly, she made a choice that didn't involve her explicit gain all the time, and she might have even gained a soul for it, as weird as it is to say. But as an
Mm-hmm.
unshriven Christian, she's going straight back down to hell. So I will remind you that these pathos characters are in fact evil murderers and
No, yeah, that
entirely.
was what was so fascinating about the way that she decided to end it. She is very explicit about it.
Mm,
She commits an act of self-sacrifice in order to save a Shibi and take out the Fabricants, because she's realized that that is the thing that the doctor valued, the piece of humanity of theirs that was missing. It wasn't body parts, it was the ability to self-sacrifice. So she self-sacrifices in an act of what she considers to be pure selfishness, right? She is the only Fabricant who gets to be the complete human, because she's the only one who's figured out that you need self-sacrifice to be a human.
yes.
Uh, which is a really intriguing idea for a character. And yet, as we see her, she never really internalizes it. It's
Yep.
an intellectual idea to her, right? Like,
She understands the choice she can make and makes the choice, but it would not be something that would come to her naturally.
yeah, not only would it not be something that comes to her naturally, it's not even entirely clear if she understands why this is a quote unquote good thing to do,
Yep.
right? Like, the doctor valued it, and the doctor was the one designing them. And now, so she realizes this is what the doctor considered to be the ideal human. So she is going to complete it. She even sees it like the way she talks about it. It's like an act of victory against the other Fabricants. Like she's
Yep.
won. You know,
She's
all of
better
the
than
other
all of them.
Fabricants lose.
Yep.
Yeah, which is a really fascinating character dynamic. I appreciate that they that number 100 never really, there was no like, and now this Fabricant has learned to love type arc.
No.
Yeah. Uh,
No. No.
no, that. Oh, 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 you messed up. You messed
What?
up. It's real bad. It's real bad, Ben. You forgot I have a check.
Oh my goodness.
I actually think I have like a mate in. I have a mate in one. No, not one. So close, but I'm gonna. Let's see if I get a brilliant move. I want a brilliant move.
There we
Bam.
go. All right,
I
let's
just
take
want
a
to
look.
see. Did I get a brilliant move? Oh, oh.
Ha.
Only a great move.
Uh,
I was hoping that H take G5 would be brilliant because I gave up the rook for the mate. Okay. I still played apparently only at a 1000 rating, which isn't actually that great. Oh well. Uh New 60 minutes.
all right.
Actually no, X out rematch. There we go. Uh okay, anyway. Yeah, going back to Fabricant 100 though, like it was really interesting, I think, that the way that number 100 conceptualized what she was doing. Uh And it was a very thematically, I think, it was a thematically appropriate way to wrap up her character arc insofar as she had one.
Yeah, and that's kind of it's like it's one of those things where this was overall a pretty like workman like piece for some of this stuff, and I really think that a lot of great choices were made. That you know what?
I just won your rook, unless you want to give me your queen.
No,
Okay. Anyway, that
it,
was a little mean. I'm sorry.
it's all right. I
Uh,
mean, this is love and war, but no, like so
okay.
so many things I've read or listened to or watched, and the number one rule is don't mess up. But it is so hard to get an ending together that works. Like people, it's now popular to crap on Marvel movies, as it was always destined to be popular to crap on Marvel movies after Endgame. But the
Yep.
fact that Endgame held up as much as it did and completed quite a few story arcs fairly satisfactorily was for the quality of the people working on it was nothing short of astounding. Like I firmly
Yeah.
believe that the people who are working on Endgame are not the same people who are working on the Marvel movies now. Like ignoring directors and stuff like that, ignoring the writer's strike. Like there has been a sea change in so many different ways with Endgame compared to everything else that I just assume that it's a completely different team.
Want me to give you a hint, Ben, as I'm looking at the chess game?
Yeah, give me
Because
a hint.
I messed up.
Give me a hint.
You can win. You can win my rook
Oh, by
with
doing the
the
same thing.
exact same move.
Stupid. Yeah, all right. I'm not too proud.
I take no satisfaction in this.
Cool beans.
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, but
I'm
like,
just like, oh, like how did I let that happen? Okay. Anyway,
I'm glad you took the L. Uh, but you look at this stuff. You look at other movies. I haven't even seen Star Wars Episode 8 and 9. I think I was in
oh
the
no.
room as part of 8. And I absolutely am so tired of hearing people criticize 8. Not because it doesn't deserve criticism, it deserves to be taken out and shot. But, I just don't care. We know it's bad. We all know it's bad. We have known it's bad for years. I need art, not criticism. I need people to criticize my art also, but if I have to choose between art and criticism, I'm choosing the art every time. And then you look at other things, like who even knows where Star Trek is? From what I understand, the ending of the latest Star Trek seasons have been absolute garbage. And this goes on. That's just the mainline cultural things that are slowly dying like a boomer on life support.
So my understanding is that in regards to Star Trek, the Picard TV show literally like fired the writing team, brought in a bunch of the writers from the next generation, and gave them like one good season. Like
Amazing.
I don't I'm not even sure how that ended up happening or who was in charge of the decision making there, but they did it.
They did.
Uh, Drinker talks about it now. I disagree with Drinker. In fact, even his comments section was disagreeing with him. He was like, "Oh, I think we should give them a chance. Like, we got to give
No.
these franchises a way back. Like, if they go the wrong way." And it's like, why do we? Like,
Nope.
seriously, why? The world will survive without specifically this property.
Yep.
You know, like we will do fine if we don't have specifically the property Star Trek. Other space operas. Oh, I trapped your rook. Uh, Chess 960 is wild. Half of this stuff is like I can't even see it till the move of because I'm so not used to these board positions. Uh, Anyway,
I need to
yeah,
learn
like
some end games or something.
you should take Levi Rosman of Gotham Chess Fame's Ends Game Masterclass.
Ah.
I actually did buy his Middle Games Masterclass. Uh,
Wow.
that's right. The goal, the dream is to reach 2,000 elo. Anyway. No, like, yeah, like, I disagree with Drinker. We don't owe them anything. Like, we
Yeah.
owe them a way back. Why do we owe them that? I don't understand.
No, we don't
Yeah,
owe anyone anything on this stuff. Quite frankly, they owe us. Uh, you know,
yeah,
it's it's like like there's been nothing but abuse and scandal and a whole bunch of other garbage that has just flown into our faces. They hate us. They hate us with their entire being. They want your children. They want your children's genitals chopped off, and they want them homosexual, and they want like there is no end to the amount of evil that these people want to do. Why in the world should I give them the piss it would take to take out the fire on them? No, absolutely not. Like, we're supposed to love our enemies, but there was a difference between paying your enemies to hate you and loving them.
yep,
We live in a country where anyone can get a job anywhere. Not buying their products so some Hollywood writers can't afford, rent in their one bedroom apartment in LA, is not hating your enemies. Like, God doesn't support self destruction in any form, except
look, as
martyrdom,
much,
but that's not really self destruction.
yes, that's not self-destruction at all, in fact, but it's
Yep, yep.
almost the opposite. But anyway, look, as much as I admire the Critical Drinker, and I unironically do, I
Mm,
think he's one of the better commentators of nowadays out there. Yeah, he makes short but very information dense and well written reviews that are entertaining and funny.
yep.
Uh, and I do, completely unironically, I highly recommend The Critical Drinker. With that said, I have noticed with him, and this is true of anyone who claims to be apolitical, is that he seems to miss sometimes the moral dimension of the conflict.
Yep.
Right? Like,
I mean, he
I
wouldn't miss
see
it
it
in
with all
Star
of them.
Wars.
What was that?
He doesn't miss it in Star Wars.
He didn't miss it in Star Wars, but
No,
like
no, no,
the
no.
fact
I
that
meant
he,
like in a movie, he'd recognize the moral conflict, but he can't recognize the moral conflict in his own actions.
oh, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yes. Yeah, because it's really interesting, actually. It's an interesting phenomenon. Like, for example, the fact that he gave a good review to Arcane and he gave a good review to The Boys. And I was like, these very well might be well-made shows. You know, John did a review of Arcane. John C. Wright, John Wright did a review of
Yes.
Arcane, and gave it like a middling review. But John is somebody who is intelligent enough, or maybe intelligent is the wrong word, because I think the Critical Drinker is certainly smart. Oh, I get to do an en passant. Ha ha!
Oh my goodness.
The dream. Anyway, uh, what was I saying? Yeah, like, but John is astute enough to these sorts of things that he was immediately able to pick up on the various, the atrocious moral dimension and the, of Arcane.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be careful what I say. Sometimes I think that even John misses these things, but I want to be very careful with that because it's like,
So
yeah.
we can skip
I,
it. We don't have to talk about it.
yeah.
Uh,
I'll skip that bit, but I will go back to Drinker. So,
yeah.
like when it goes
If it, if
when
it
it comes to Drinker,
if it applies to some people and we know who they are, like I assume our audience can tell because like like there's certain philosophies I try to keep to this show, and I'm not saying this to Anthony really. I'm saying this to the watchers, and that's I don't punch right. I do not punch right for any reason, for any matter that's
Yeah, and I
truly.
wasn't going to punch either.
No, no,
That was
no.
like a very lukewarm criticism, even
Right.
at best. Like
But the thing is that
I would be mostly complimentary, but
yes, but it's when we look at this stuff, like there's a culture that's about like the dividing line is about where we are now, like between you and me, where we understand that media is a tool, not a sacred thing. But
yep,
the people who grew up previous to us kind of have a media is a sacred thing going for them. And there's a lot of people like that who aren't even older than us or younger than us. But there's this cultural thing, Gen Y is a good example of this, where there's a certain amount of sacredness in the great old shows in the past. Appendix N was a labor of love, but it was also an enshrining of a lot of the pulp stuff that people rallied around. Superversive was a similar thing as well, but those were healthy. We were reviving old techniques of the past to further our work in the modern. But then you look at things like buying the next Star Wars film, being subscribed to Disney Plus. I wish I didn't have to use Disney in every example, but that octopus is more horny than Japanese octopus in one of them Japanese animes. This thing is everywhere, and I hate it because it ruins the examples of what I'm trying to talk about. Because it's just Disney. It's Disney all the way down. Paramount has one thing that matters, and that's Star Trek, and it's not that culturally relevant um, anymore. Anyway, these idols that people have, or at least people that treat them as sacred. Um, it hurts the ability to have discourse. Like there are some moral dimensions that I simply can't talk about with people because they do not accept the a priori assumptions. Or they can't understand the difference between me saying there is a group like this versus all are like this. For example, Masons. Many people will say, and I'm using Masons as a conspiracy that doesn't get us kicked from YouTube or something. People will say, well, there's plenty of good guys in Masons. Yes. The whole point of a Mason, at least in the low levels, is for guys to have a good time with each other. It is one of the few men only spaces left in the world, that are public anyway. Um, Elk Lodge is another one. A lot of guys have a lot of fun in Elk Lodge. The danger of masonry is not in the guys having a normal one at a barbecue at Mason Lodge 573 off of the interstate. The problem is that the rituals they choose to use and their leadership up in the highest levels and the people who have founded their movement were all evil. They made choices that take men away from God and ruin their ability to hold on to concrete truth. Even ignoring actual Freemason plots, the rituals that I have read all explicitly attack. Well, I shouldn't say explicitly, it's explicit to me. Implicitly is probably better. Things like ultimate truth in God, one path to salvation, the ability to determine what is spiritually healthful. But if I say it is spiritually bad for Masons to be there, to be Masons, because of these reasons, well, I know many Christian Masons. I don't care. That's not what I'm talking about. This is a have you eaten your breakfast today sort of thing. What would you feel like if you hadn't eaten breakfast today? I don't know. I did, but I did have breakfast. You get these ideas, and we want to talk about them because sacred cows need to be slaughtered and eaten, but we can't really attack it without saying that there is a deep moral flaw that exists in a very large swath of people so that they treat things that need to die more sacred than how a Christian, especially a Christian, should treat media. In the end, I don't have anything. I don't have Netflix. I don't have Disney Plus. I have Shudder, but that's just because I like watching some movies up until Halloween, and then when I'm done with Halloween, I turn it off again. And even then, it's like, hey, here's a free month. Okay, oh boy, they're getting a lot of money out of me with a $5.99. And even that's probably too much. Um, you get these things, you want to talk about them. We want to talk about them, but we either have to say, well, I'll just come out and say it. John C. Wright is wrong to treat these certain things as more sacred, as important, as something to be treated with more than mocking laughter, even more so than the critical drinker is to do so, because the critical drinker is paid for it. He's paid for it. Every Disney movie review he gets like 1 million views or a couple 100,000. That's a lot of moolah. That's a lot of vodka
Yep.
for the thirsty man. So he has an excuse. He's not a Christian either. At least he has never struck me as one. In fact, I'm just going to say now, he has never shown me any sign that he is a Christian. Not that he's talked to me
Yeah,
or anything.
he doesn't indicate it at all in anything he does.
But when we talk about Christian creators, we have to, treat things differently. The spiritual nature of what we do and support is more important than even the financial nature of it. In the end, it is better for our economy to die and for us to be starving in the streets and dealing with rioters and stuff like that than it is for us to continue to support these evil things that we are forced to talk about, like Disney and stuff like that. It needs to die. It's not dying yet, but it's slowly crumbling. I think people who are attacking the go woke, go broke thing is like, oh well, they don't actually go broke. It's like, give it some time. Like, you think Ma Bell and Standard Oil and other things were broken up in a day? No, it took them years to shatter those giants. Like, sure, some things were fast, but the actual working of the monopoly into many little different pieces, no. Like, it's gonna die over many years, even now. Uh, and quite frankly, they're being supported with so much money from outside of them that it's insane. But it's like when we deal with these things, we don't want to be assholes about it, but at the same time, we have to make sure our principled stands are drawn in very specific places. You cannot go without using Procter and Gamble products. They are literally everything. You have to be off the grid to not use Procter and Gamble products. Same with BlackRock. Heck, if you want to make your own little bunker in the wilderness, you're probably buying land from BlackRock or a BlackRock affiliate. Like there is no escape, and that's not even counting what the banking would have to be for you to get the loan for the land. You know, but we can make a choice on entertainment. Right now, we're playing a game of chess. Well, I haven't made a move in like 10 minutes, but whatever. Uh, that entertainment is free. We can play as many chess games as we want. We could do it in person. And quite frankly, buying a chess set from somebody isn't going to destroy Western civilization anytime soon. You can even carve one yourself. It's not too hard compared to other things you can carve. But then you look at it. Let's go to the theater. What do we want to see? This. Disney product, Paramount product. You know.
Well, I will say this though.
Go
Let me
ahead.
tell you the last things that I've seen in theater. I saw The Wind Rises in theater.
Hmm.
I saw Sound of Freedom in theater. I saw the Chosen season finale in theater. I saw what was it? Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind in theater. Uh, you don't need to see big product to go to the theater anymore.
Yep.
I did see Oppenheimer. I will tell you that. So there you go. There's my lapse, right, of recent stuff.
I
But
almost went to Barbie. Mea culpa.
was it a family thing? Because then it's somewhat excusable.
No, I wanted to do it just because of the memes, but I did
I
not.
see.
I was
No,
lazy.
you shouldn't. I did see Oppenheimer, and I don't really think Oppenheimer is that bad. I think Nolan, at least, is a genuine artist. Yeah, but like, yeah, you if you enjoy going to the theater and watching movies, this is one thing that I see people that I 100% disagreement. People are like, "Oh, I don't think that it should be an option to completely disengage from the culture." It's like I'm not completely disengaged from the culture. I'm
Yep.
very, I'm up to date with the culture. I go to the theater. I watch movies. You know,
Yep.
it's not like I live in a super urban area either. It's like I have to travel what 20 minutes to a theater that'll show anime every now and then. Like it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Uh I travel out 20 minutes to see anime every now and then, or see The Chosen in theaters, or see Sound of Freedom in theaters.
Hmm.
All good stuff, right? Let's try this. I'm making fast moves. I've used less than 5 minutes of my time.
Because I've been
Okay,
talking.
that's okay.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, like you can go to the theater and see things if you just pay attention and are maybe willing to travel like a little bit. I'm not talking about going out an hour. I'm talking going out, 15 minutes, a half hour, not to the theater that's right next to your house. I literally do have a theater that is right next to my house. It's rare that I go there. I went there to see Oppenheimer, I think.
Yeah.
No, I saw actually no, I didn't. I saw Oppenheimer in IMAX. I saw Sound of Freedom at my local theater. Uh, but yeah, like there's those aren't the only two options. It's a false dichotomy of completely disengage from the culture and don't see big budget movie. Yeah. And Critical Drinker, yeah, I've noticed sometimes that when I watch him, he will occasionally miss the moral dimension, like praising Arcane. It's like Arcane might have had a good one season because this is how woke projects will often go, right?
Yep.
Like they'll make sure, and I also disagree that like I've seen people make the argument that if storytelling is good, that automatically makes it not woke. That's not true.
Who
Well-made
says that's
propaganda.
horrible?
I'm trying to paraphrase, and I'm probably being unfair with it, but I've seen people be like, oh, but the story, they're making a point, they're nuancing it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're still trying to promote a certain particular message. Into the Spider-Verse is a really great example of this. I will not see that movie,
Yep.
right? I won't watch it. I might watch it maybe when it comes out. I'll watch it if I can sell the 7 Cs for it or get it from a library or something,
Hmm.
right? But I won't pay for it.
Right.
I didn't pay for No Way Home either, and I thought No Way Home was an unironically excellent movie. Like, I specifically made sure I didn't pay for it. I praised the movie after I saw it, when far beyond the point where it mattered at all to the movie's profit, But, like, I did not pay to see No Way Home. And one of the reason I didn't pay to see No Way Home is because at that point I just accept that anything Disney puts out, they're an evil company, and I don't want to support them.
Right.
Uh, But Into the Spider Verse was a little bit different. Like, first off, I don't trust the people who make this stuff anymore, right? It's
Hmm.
like, can you make a story about a black Spider Man that isn't woke and is actually good? Yeah,
Supposedly
in theory.
Hispanic, but no.
I mean, he looks black to me. I don't know.
No, no.
But
They clearly switched him around a bit, including his family dynamics and stuff like that. They've erased a lot of what Miles Morales is, um, and
that's interesting.
it's kind of like, so there was a comic movement around the turn of the century that was mostly like ultimate versions. The only one
Yeah.
that mattered was Miles Morales. partially because it was the first. It was also written pretty good. He was also a completely different character from Peter Parker. This was before all the woke stuff was happening, so it was one of those things that could really get the foot into the door, but also not be offensive to a lot of people. Not that I ever really read comics. I'm just saying that that's how Miles Morales was treated. Uh,
Yeah, and part of the problem with Into the Spider-Verse, it's like, read a review of the movie, and it's like, I thought it was going to be woke, but it wasn't. Like, sure, they have a scene where Peter Parker is basically a comic relief Mr. Mom character who says he has to learn from Miles instead of Miles learning from him. And
right,
sure, they have a pregnant Spider-Woman who is in the middle of the fight at one point. And
correct.
sure, the entire plot of the story is actually a meta commentary about woke replacements for characters, because the whole thing, and it's really not subtle about it either. They make the comment, you're not supposed to be Spider Man because you were bit by a spider from another universe. In other words, this isn't your story. You weren't supposed to be here. And that is clearly a shot at people who are criticizing that sort of thing,
Yeah,
right? Uh,
which they can't help themselves but do. Like, yeah, there's the what did I just do? Dang it.
I don't know if he did anything bad yet. It's just a really complicated position. I'm trying to make headway in it. But okay. Anyway, because you'll get the pawn. But you need to take my knight first, so I can move. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, uh,
No, I messed up, but it's all right.
ooh, ooh, ooh. I have an idea. Cool idea. No, you did the. You want to know something? You move things in the right order. I think you saw what I saw.
No, I didn't see what you saw, Anthony. Moved almost completely at random. But yeah, let's take a look at Into the Spider Verse. I've read up on
Right.
it because um, it's culturally relevant, and I do try to keep a track of things that are culturally relevant. Um, and the
I'm gonna
reason
use.
why I do that isn't because of some sort of, oh well, you gotta know the
What the enemy is doing.
what the enemy is doing, what the story beats are. There's a lot of information that people don't know how to look for, what people are doing. So, Into the Spider Verse is not going to be some vehicle for new degeneracy, quote unquote. It's going to be used to reinforce enemy lines. That's the best way to put it. So what they have is the black female pregnant Spider Woman. They have Hobie Jones, which I will admit is a very cool name. Uh,
It is.
but like you look at his character, it's like, well, he's Antifa. He's basically a heroic Antifa with the fascist government of his dimension, man. And they give him some cool scenes. What?
I think I'm gonna be able to win your queen. Let's see. I think I can. Or worse, because I can do this.
How is this not checkmate?
But yeah. Can I get a mate here, or should I just go for? I think I have a mate here.
You do.
No, I don't, because you could take my knight. But I
Oh
will in
yeah,
like a
that's
turn
true.
or two.
Okay.
I will in like a turn or two,
Okay.
so I'm just gonna take the easy move and to take the queen. Uh, yeah. Okay. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, like the problem with Into the Spider Verse is that like is obviously pushing the lines, criticizing people who dislike having their legacy characters replaced by minorities, which is a ludicrous thing to criticize.
Yep.
Right? Completely ludicrous thing to criticize.
Absolutely
Uh,
comes from nowhere. They have no idea what you're talking about.
right, but that's exactly what they're doing with it.
Yep.
Like, very explicitly. They tear down Peter Parker in order to set up a minority character, but people don't notice it because the way they tear down Peter Parker is different than the way they normally do it because the writers of Into the Spider-Verse are clever,
Yep.
right? And I will give them that. Like,
Like I
it's
said,
diabolical cleverness, but they're clever.
right.
It's
Like
a well-written movie.
yeah.
That's the point. That's the problem.
Yep.
Well-written propaganda isn't better, it's worse.
It's still propaganda, and I will remind you that you people, not Anthony, but I will remind most of you that you are not autistic enough to be immune to propaganda. So you got to be careful. There's a lot of psyops out there for a young man out in the projects.
And
But
even even my autism levels sometimes are not strong enough.
no, Anthony, don't tell me that. But
Yeah,
dang it.
Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, by the way, as this game has gone on, I've just like casually been eating
I know.
all of your pieces. Uh anyway, Into the Spider-Verse is a movie that bothers me because it bothers me that there are people who are defending it,
Yep.
right? Like that who I trust, who I think are very intelligent and who say that I agree that it is a good movie. I would not that was never the thing in dispute that it was a good movie, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
of course it's a good movie. You know, it looks gorgeous. The plot's very clever. Uh right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
if I watched it, I would probably enjoy it. But that is worse, not better. It is well-made propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
As I continue the assault, I'm just looking for the checkmate now. It's got to be within like a couple moves, I would think. I got to be careful not to stalemate you though. Let's try this. And then it's just mate in one. Yeah. And you have a pawn move, so it's no stalemate. You have one pawn move. Bam.
6 blunders.
That's
But
about right.
you look, yeah, and it's like the thing that does get me about it is that there is the engine just choked and died trying to do it.
How
Uh,
did you get 62% accuracy in 6 wonders? How does that make any sense?
because the inaccurate parts were just that bad.
And you
Uh,
know what's amazing? After I gave up, like I was winning, and after I gave up my rook in the same way that you lost yours, I was immediately losing.
huh. Anyway, like I just want to focus on Hobie Jones for a minute. So
Mhm.
let's take that as a character because he actually has some lines and some plot relevance. His whole shtick is that he's a punk rocker against the fascist government of his dimension. Okay, that's actually not a bad thing. It's a little 70s, but it's all right. Little 80s, little 70s. Um, it's a thing. The idea has legs. There's some things that are perfectly cromulent about his character. But then you look at what he actually represents. He is a great deal of wish fulfillment. He has a great deal of Deus Ex Machina. He has certain things that he does that pushes what I think is like the one white character in the series, Gwen Stacy, uh, to maybe to have a bit more freedom, a bit more. You're lucky I'm a glutton for punishment, Anthony. Uh, a bit more freedom. He takes tools from Miguel, who was quite frankly done dirty. Spider-Man 2099 was a favorite of mine. One of the few things I actually followed and enjoyed, and having this stuff kind of get thrown back in my face it is kind of annoying. It's kind of frustrating. Um, just because it's a continual march against everything I've ever enjoyed, and it still annoys me, even after all these years. So he's Antifa, right? He is a positive depiction of Antifa. He exists to morally justify Antifa and Antifa actions within the minds of the people who watch it. You might be like, well, there's a difference between that guy being a Spider Man and the people who burned down all those black neighborhoods in multiple cities. Yeah,
Not to the people who wrote it.
not to the people who wrote it. And what's these are people who actually show up for these things, for these fights, for these riots. So you have uh, a clear, positive message for Antifa. Oh,
Oh no. I'll have to rematch. You didn't move
yeah, there
fast
we
enough.
go.
There we go. Okay.
So you have a positive, yeah, whatever. So you have a positive role model for people to look at. Now, no, these days, people aren't fooled by things as they were in other times. So you can kind of say that, yeah, there doesn't exist, as much uh, danger as there could be for something like if this was done like 30 years ago or something. People know what Antifa is, even if they have no idea what it's about. They do know it's those people who burned down those cities because of racism, maybe. And quite frankly, most Zoomer guys aren't deceived by it. They know it was just kind of a riot to burn things down. But then again, Zoomers are one of the most oppressed generations I've ever seen. Holy crap! Um, then you have uh, the black pregnant woman Spider-Man. Then you have India's Spider-Man, which was, I guarantee you, was demanded so that they could crack open the India market. Um, his gimmick of the yo-yos and tops and stuff like that is patently ridiculous. And I know he was added on because none of the plot points involve him in any sort of way. He does not show up in the memes. He does not show up in the commentary. He does not show up at all. But he's supposed to be a main. But he's supposed to be a main character. What's that about? I don't know.
I'm looking at this chess game. Yeah. Okay, let's go with that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is the sort of thing where like Critical Drinker will praise The Boys, for example, and it's like again, I'm sure that The Boys was probably a well-made show in
Yep.
season 1. I heard it fell apart.
Uh,
I wouldn't know. I never watched it, but I'm sure it was a well-made show in season 1. But it was a civilizationally dysfunctional show,
yep.
right? Like same with Arcane. I'm sure Arcane was a well-made show, but it was also an evil show.
Yep.
And Critical Drinker doesn't seem to realize, at least this is my criticism of him, that some of these things, when you are doing it, I don't care about the politics, I just care about a good story. Well, they care about the politics.
Yep.
Uh,
You don't
they
need.
very much care about the politics.
It's very much a you don't need two to tango. Uh,
Yeah,
all it takes is one person to hate you and everything you are for them to be able to, um, start tearing down everything they can get their hands on. And we know by now that we are in as much of a cultural war as we are a spiritual one. The whole point is to destroy what little Christian influences are left, and because the left, how well, I don't want to even say the left. It's more than just the left. You know, the forces of evil, Satan, the forces of darkness, how they view things. They intrinsically tie whiteness to Christianity. Uh, you know, and they run with it. Um, you know, it's for those who are actually in power. They use whatever tools they can get their hands on. But
Mhm.
I my personal theory, based on what I've studied of history, is that the great deal of the hate that comes for, you know, white civilization, Western civilization, comes from the fact that when we accepted Christianity, we accepted it root and branch. Like, whatever people can say about the Protestant Reformation or the Eastern Orthodox split with the Catholics, you know, it doesn't matter as much as you think. In reality, every Western race accepted Christianity by the 15th century. Slavs,
Mhm.
Irish, English, Scottish. The pagans were completely destroyed and driven out. Even though, as a Protestant, I have many different problems with, you know, the Catholic organization and how they did things. You know, in the end, a peasant who doesn't understand, like, God's not going to treat a peasant who all he can't read. He's never read the Bible for himself. All he knows is what his priest tells him. If he goes down to the indulgence box, gets to his knees and prays, "Lord, forgive me, I am a sinner," you know, as he puts the money into the indulgence box, that man's saved. You know, he is depending on Christ for his salvation, but he has been told something different. And I'm using that for meme purposes. I don't think it actually happened like that. You know, like if somebody goes to the statue of Mary, you know, Mary, you know, please, you know, see to your, you know, son, you know, so that, you know, he accepts me into paradise. I want nothing more than my sins to be forgiven by the blood of Christ, you know, which we know they had knowledge of that for sure. You know, if you're falling down in front of the statues begging for salvation, you know, you have a spirit that flows throughout it of Jesus Christ, of God, of salvation, of the blood of Jesus. You know, how it forms, you know, the pathway to Jesus Christ is one solo pathway. However, pretty much everyone in Europe and North Africa and a few other places before the Muslim invasions just ran for it, went for it with all they had. Their whole civilization turned on dimes to accept this new paradigm. And I think that's a lot of what they hate, um, you know, for it. They don't hate because of some sort of skin color or anything like that. They hate because we accepted Christ. I haven't seen the movie, but I wouldn't be shocked if there were heavy Christian overtones in Hobie Jones's fascist government. I'd be shocked if it wasn't some sort of Handmaid's Tale wannabe thing. They just couldn't figure out a way to shove into the movie without, you know, ruining it. Like, and that's not, you know, it goes on and on and on. Like, there's never going to be a based Spider-Man movie. There's never going to be any sort of wokeness that will be refrained from. I'm honestly shocked that people aren't seeing, wait a minute, you know, there's some map stuff in there, there's some pedophile stuff in there. You know, like right now, what they did was, is Gwen trans? You know, that's what they did for a good week and something, a month almost. You know, you look at these
Yep.
things, you know, it's an attack on Christianity, it's attack on this, it's attack on this, and it's attack on this. The Roman Empire was full of transvestites. You know, like pagans have all these things that they're going for that they support. You know, you can't just take these sort of things and expect them not to be there. Every movie that's coming out has to be expected to be woke with no exceptions. You know, there's not Snoop Dogg, some rapper.
Kanye.
No, it's like they're doing a film about Black Jesus. Um, Like that's not a genuine response. That's an attack. Not because they're making Jesus black. It's because they're making it not about Jesus. They're just using him as a vehicle for what they want to attack of today. And the fact that they can outrage some people on the internet too much is also a benefit. Um, you know, they are agents of the enemy.
Yeah, yeah. No disagreement from me. Uh, yeah. When I look at these things of like Spider Verse and all, and these various movies, Dungeons and Dragons movie is another example of one. Now that was one that I saw with family in theaters, which I sort of regret and sort of don't. Like, on one hand, I wouldn't recommend that other people see it, but on the other hand, it was like my family really wanted to do something and I did it with them, So I don't think that that's necessarily like, oh man, you've betrayed our cause type stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, I wouldn't recommend that other people do it, but like, it was an okay film that should have been better than it was, and was ruined by wokeness, right? Like, Dungeons and Dragons, we had a whole stream on it already, so I won't go into it. But the fascinating thing about Dungeons and Dragons was how the writers were working very hard to follow the rules of wokeness,
Yep.
right? Like, this was clearly something that mattered and was important to them. It was honestly a little bit strange, right?
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, it's I don't know how to put it exactly. Like, I think people need to understand that, like, we these people do hate you, right? The people who made Into the Spider-Verse, the people who run Marvel right now, you know. Uh One of the things with James Gunn is that the tweets came out that almost got him canceled a few years ago. Uh those tweets were not what should have gotten him canceled. They were nonsense. They were just like he was an edgy comedian making stuff. I
Yep.
agree with this. That's correct. What should have gotten him canceled was the fact that he attended a pedophile themed party with other Hollywood executives. That did not come up ever.
Yep.
Right? Like, nobody ever talked about the fact that the man literally attended a pedophile themed party.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's so utterly bizarre. It sounds like you're making it up, but you're not. There are photos. I've seen them.
Yep.
It's like, that's why I said I won't see Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, what? You think that it was right to cancel him just because of some tweets he made? No, absolutely not. I don't think it's right to cancel people for, edgy tweets they make. I think it's right to cancel people who go to pedophile themed parties with their Hollywood friends. Because that's like what Hollywood does, right? Like,
Yep.
they try and that's the whole point of what they're doing. They're trying to desensitize you.
Yep. Like
You know,
there's like on certain websites like Vice and Salon and stuff like that, they're starting to rev up, which they do every 2 years or something. Like, is do we really want to? You can't. They just don't have a choice in who they're attracted to, just like gay people. Oh, you know, I didn't
yeah,
know that there was
they
a
keep testing the waters every couple of years to
Yep.
see if the public is ready yet. I don't think they are yet.
Yep. But it'll.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure if they ever will be.
Yeah.
Uh, because that's just like, it's an entirely different thing in people's heads.
Yep.
That, yes, the logic does follow, which, that's another story. It's like the logic of pedophilia from homosexuality does follow, but I don't think that nobody wants to make that connection.
Why can't I?
It's a very
Yeah.
what was that?
Nothing. Uh. So it.
It's a
Yeah.
very uncomfortable connection for people to make. I think that that's why every time it's brought up, people are going to try and avoid the implications as much as they can, because it's not going to be good when people actually start making that connection.
Yep.
Okay. So it is now 8:12, meaning we have gone over an hour, and I want to discuss something of my own personal interest. Can I do that now that all of the people who started listening are gone and nobody cares anyway?
Let's go off some things real quick. Merg Magler Max has a couple of posts. Aaron
Go
McIntyre
ahead.
described the concept of the woke Trojan horse using shows like Peaky Blinders, Ted Lasso, The Walking Dead. Yeah, I didn't watch his stream describing the concept. My guess is the idea that a show has a based first season. None of those shows had a based first season, my dude. The Walking Dead was liberal to the core for at the time, as of what it is, which hooks neutrals and
Oh,
non-wokes before
interesting.
a
You think
slow
that, huh?
dripping pause. They had an entire episode about environmentalism, and they only had like 8 episodes in the first season. Yeah,
So
hold on.
I recall watching. So here's the thing: I recall watching like season one, season two, and getting bored and stopping after that point. Like years after the fact, it was just like one of those things where I was like, "Hey, what shows could I try?" Oh, Walking Dead's popular, one
Yeah.
of those things, right? And I do not recall the woke stuff in it. Now, don't get me wrong; I don't think it was like a great show by any
So
means
there
either.
were some lesbian characters. There was that environmentalist speech from some rando. There was actually those were the two biggest ones, which were extreme for the time, at least from my tastes. There's also just kind of been this. I don't know if you'd call it prevailing nihilism, but like there's no spirituality to it. There's no.
Oh yeah, yes, that's 100% true in The Walking Dead. Uh, yeah, it was never that great of a show, to be honest with you. There was never a point where it was that great. So,
Hmm.
but you're right. Like the woke Trojan horse, Ted Lasso is a good example. I remember Matt Frad was talking about it. He said, "I watched it until there was an episode where they were fornicating." Uh,
I have no idea what Ted Lasso is, by the way.
Ted Lasso is a show about a football coach who's hired to coach soccer in Europe, and uh, the joke is that the woman who hires him because she's trying to tank the team, and the coach is like, think Major League if you've ever seen that movie.
Sure.
Uh, and yeah, like it's also the fact that like Ted is just a really nice guy and super good natured and very like folksy and stuff like that. Yeah. Uh, things like that.
Yeah.
Uh, Man, I had an attack on your king, and then I lost a piece trying to go for that attack, and I completely lost it. Oh well. Maybe I can get it back.
No.
Maybe. Let's try. Okay. Anyway. Uh, yeah, the point is, like, so I remember Matt Frad talking about it. He said that he enjoyed the show, and then there was an episode with fornication, and he just stopped watching it. Uh, which is an interesting thing to an interesting reason, but I think very sound. But yeah, this
It is
is
entirely necessary to do that.
yes, I agree.
Mm.
Uh, chat or put it another way, Chad. Yes, base Matt Frad. Oh,
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 because
I
there's a
have an
queen
idea.
there. Okay.
Yeah, I have an idea. See, okay. Uh, okay. Anyway, yeah, the woke Trojan horse. That's definitely a thing. Yeah, Peaky Blinders. Ted Lasso is a good example. The Walking Dead, I don't know, maybe a little bit. Perhaps you're right. That damn castling in my chess 960. It's a good Christian server, Minecraft server, sir. I forgot you even could castle in chess 960. But whatever. Uh, yeah, they were a good example. There's also I will say this though, while I do think that people are sometimes a little bit overly concerned about this, I do think that there is a real point of what I would call concern of sometimes something isn't intentionally trying to be woke. It's just like the air, the air that it's in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's just in an environment where everything is woke,
Yep.
right? So of course it's woke. Oh, oh,
What
oh.
did I do?
Can I do this? Is this a good move? Yeah, do that. I don't know. No, never mind. But this is a good move. Yes. Ha. Ha. But. Bam. Nuclear bomb. And now I'm gonna win. Okay. I think I'm gonna win now. I don't know how you get out of this. But yeah, there is a point where it's like, maybe it's not like intentionally woke. It's just like an environment where everything is woke. So,
Yep.
when you're a fish, water is right. Like you can't really tell if water is wet. I think some of the stuff you see in like Marvel and whatever, not current Marvel. Current Marvel is a woke disaster. I mean like Endgame and pre-Endgame Marvel. Some of the stuff you saw there could kind of be in that category occasionally. Uh, some of the Disney Renaissance stuff I think was probably in that category, and some was intentional. Uh, I will say I am very strong on the record that I think that Mulan was incredibly woke, and I think that people who don't think Mulan was incredibly woke, I think they know, and they're fooling themselves. Uh, frankly,
Yep.
like it's so incredibly obviously woke. It's not trying to hide it in any way. Ah, you moved your queen. That was a mistake
What?
because it blocked that checkmate. Your queen on that blocked that square. I couldn't mate you while your queen was there because it
Oh
protected
my
that square.
goodness.
But you moved it. Okay,
All
I'm
right.
curious. What does the game review say? Okay.
Once again, my thing chokes and dies.
All right. This one is a little bit more plausible based on the level of play. I played at a 58.8% accuracy, which is bad, and you played at a 41.1% accuracy, which it estimates you as a 150 elo. Just to clarify, the minimum rating, the lowest possible rating you can get on chess.com is 100. Uh, and the rating guesser guesses in 50 elo increments. So you were rated a little bit over 100 based on your play this game.
Huh.
I like how it calculates chess 960 though. Like it says there was no opening. Now let me see if I do. Okay, it thinks this was a mistake, but that was bad.
I don't see how pawn to g5 was a blunder.
Let me see. So
Like I guess sure, in the sense that oh wait, did you? Oh yeah, you en passant it, didn't you?
was this the game? Or was it the last game that I en passanted?
I don't know.
I'm looking. Where was pawn to g5? Why was that a blunder? So, I'll tell you why it was a blunder.
Because
So,
I didn't develop my knight when I was free to.
if I show move, no, I'll tell you. It's actually really I'm complete. You don't. It doesn't look like a blunder because I missed the proper follow up. It's because I won your. I should have trapped your queen.
Oh.
And and then it finds literally like a 7-move follow-up of moves that ends with us roughly equal with each other, I would have like a plus 0.03 advantage. But so if I had gone rook h1, your queen is trapped. It's completely trapped. And interestingly, Stockfish says that the best move for you is not to take my knight, it's to take the bishop. Because when I take back with the king, you check with your bishop. Wow, I would think then you could win my rook, and then I win your bishop back, but it doesn't even want you to do that. Stockfish has some crazy lines sometimes. The point is, you were winning by a lot, but then I had your queen trapped,
Yeah.
but I missed it. And that would have like made the game equal. And now you're up 6 points of material up until, or like it considers you to be up by 6 because your queen. Presumably, the reason your advantage is so big is that your queen is literally like right next to my king.
Right.
Like I am on the verge. If I do one thing wrong, or if you get on one more piece into the game,
Right.
right, like onto that attack, I'm going to lose.
Yes.
So that's why it sees your advantage as so big. And you lose the advantage, which it doesn't consider a blunder, but it should. You lose the advantage when you go queen to h6, because now you're no longer immediately threatening my king.
Right. But I
So,
had to do that because you would have taken my queen.
so at this point, yeah, let me see what it thinks the best
This
move
is so
is. I'm
weird.
curious. Show moves. So
Either way, I'm done for now.
that's fine. I assumed. I figured. Okay. Yeah, the woke Trojan horse is a pretty interesting phenomenon, but I am at the point where like I don't really trust anything. And can I talk about Ben? Do I have permission to drive the rest of our viewers away?
I don't know. Go for it.
Okay. Justified City Primeval. So this is one of those things every now and then I get interested in something that literally nobody else cares about, and I know that nobody else cares about it, but I also can't stop thinking about it. So this is now that thing that you're going to get my thoughts on this show that basically nobody I know watched but me. So Justified was a show that came out in like early to mid 2000s. I would say closer to the mid 2000s, right? Uh it was when it was on TV. I started watching it in around season 5, so I watched the last 2 seasons of it. It was my favorite show. Uh it really was like it was an absolutely fantastic show. I loved it. A couple of really some real classic episodes in there. It was based on the works of Elmore Leonard. Elmore Leonard is a Western and crime writer. He got his start as a Western writer and then transitioned to crime writing, but a lot of his crime stuff had like a Western edge to it. You know, I'm I wouldn't have considered myself a huge Leonard fan, but Leonard himself, like, people don't realize this, but Elmore Leonard movies are literally like a subgenre of movies. There are dozens of Elmore Leonard movies, and I'm not kidding about that. Uh, Most famously, if you don't know something by Elmore Leonard, don't think you know something by Elmore Leonard, you probably do. The 310 to Yuma Western movies, which they made one in 2007 with Matt Damon and Russell Crowe.
It was pretty
I
good.
think it was. Yeah. That was based off of an Elmore Leonard short story. Uh, Jackie Brown, the Quentin Tarantino movie, was based off of Elmore Leonard. Several television shows, a TV movie based on Pronto, Get Shorty with Danny DeVito. Uh, just like the list goes on and on and on. Like Elmore Leonard movies are their own subgenre of Hollywood film. And Elmore Leonard himself always said that he considered Justified, the TV show, to be the best adaptation of his work. Uh, Justified, I would say, was notable for having extremely good dialogue. It was outstandingly cast. Uh, Timothy Oliphant as the lead, Raylan Givens, Walton Goggins as Boyd Crowder. Uh, Fun fact with Walton Goggins as Boyd, who became he was like the antagonist of the show, and he became Raylan's foil. In the short story that Justified is based on, which is called Fire in the Hole, uh, Boyd, the character, is killed at the end of the story, but the Justified writers liked Walton Goggins' performance as Boyd so much that they decided not to kill him. And Elmore Leonard loved Walton Goggins' performance so much that when he wrote a sequel novel to the short story titled Raylan, he brought back Boyd Crowder, the character, and credited it to Walton Goggins' performance as Boyd. Uh, and Walton Goggins later said that he never in his life was he ever paid a bigger compliment as an actor than the creator of a character bringing the character back to life because they loved his specific portrayal of that character so much. Uh, Pretty cool detail. But anyway, so Justified the show famously ended. Justified was like a popular show. The thing is that it was popular in the South. It wasn't popular in the North. There was like nobody else I knew who watched the show. I was the only one. Because I'm a dirty Yankee, live in New Jersey, all of that stuff. Uh, it was popular though in Kentucky where it took place, and in the South, which it was primarily about. So it ran for 6 seasons and probably could have run more and did very well. You know, it ended on a very good note. So the whole series is about this conflict between Boyd and Raylan, who, though they are on opposite sides of the law, they have a connection with each other because they dug coal together. Raylan is proclaimed in the pilot to be the angriest man. Uh, his ex-wife tells him, "You're the angriest man I've ever met." Right? So he's an incredibly angry person, but he has latched onto the law as this thing that can stabilize him and that will keep him on the straight and narrow. Which is why the series starts with him offering a bad guy either you get out of town in 24 hours or we draw, you know, and we have a shootout. So he counts down to 24 hours. Uh, the bad guy draws and Raylan shoots. And when Raylan is asked about this, he says the other guy drew first. It was justified, right? Hence the name of the show. And so he's reassigned from Florida to Kentucky, which is where he grew up, right? That's the premise of the show. Raylan shoots a bunch of people because he's actually a very angry person, but according to his moral code and according to the law, the shootings are justified because the other guy always draws first. So you get to the finale of the show. Boyd has gone through all of the stuff, right? Finally, Raylan meets up with Boyd and they gear up for their final showdown. And he tells Boyd, "You better draw." And Boyd says, "No, I will not. I'm not going to draw. And you know what? If you send me to prison, I'm going to escape. And when I escape, I'm going to kill." There was a girl involved because there's always a girl involved. "I'm going to kill Ava. I'm going to shoot her." Right? And so, what are you going to do? And Raylan, of course, doesn't shoot him. That completes the character arc, right? Raylan is no longer a person who is ruled by his rage. He's no longer a person who's controlled by his anger. You know, now he can maybe be a lawman for the right reasons because he wants to do the right thing. Uh, it's a very nice wrap up to the show. Then they have one last conversation. Raylan lies and tells him that the girl who he was after died, and then they say, "But why did you come and visit me in person?" And and Boyd says, "I think I know. It's because we dug coal together." And Raylan says, "That's right," and that's how the show ends. Great ending, great show, right? So they have a revival years later. Now, right off the bat, this is a sketchy idea for a few reasons. First, we're in the modern day where all revivals need to be suspect, right? And immediately you start seeing red flags in talk about, how will Raylan deal with modern policing and how things have evolved. Uh, I had made the decision pretty early on that yes, I was going to watch it, but I had absolutely no, like, I was not going to be emotionally invested in if it were bad. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't going to make me lose sleep if it wasn't any good. Uh, but there were other weird things about the revival too, but there were also reasons to maybe be optimistic. It was going to be based on another Elmore Leonard novel. The novel was called The City Primeval, High Noon in Detroit. So, a modernized retelling of High Noon that did not star Raylan Givens. It starred a character named Raymond Cruz. And it was a retelling or a sort of update modernization of High Noon set in Detroit, starring this Cruz character with a villain named Clement Manzel, the Oklahoma wild man. Uh, and the show was gearing it up as it's Raylan versus Manzel in a showdown in Detroit. And the lawyer, Manzel's lawyer, was going to play like a big role as a third party, right? So that's not necessarily a bad idea, adapting another Elmore Leonard novel. It's a little weird that Raylan's not the protagonist and they're just sticking him there, but hey, maybe the original guy was like a proto Raylan and they're just, it would make sense, right? I mean, City Primeval was written in 1980. So they do the show, and the show was okay. It was like a 6 out of 10, and this is where things get really interesting for me. So, the message of the show, it's very weird. Raylan goes to Detroit, he gets wrapped up in all of this stuff, and the whole thing is about, like, if you know the story of High Noon, the original book is subtitled High Noon in Detroit. It's literally meant to be a modernized retelling of High Noon. Now, anybody who knows anything about the history of High Noon knows that it was written as commie propaganda, which John Wayne was very, very vocal about. But in concept, the idea of High Noon, two men enter, one man leaves, and, it's the only good man in town, and nobody else will support him, so he needs to find the integrity to do what needs to be done, right? That's a great concept on its own. It is ripe for an update, and Detroit is a perfect setting for that sort of story, right? A corrupt place like Detroit. That is exactly where you need to have a High Noon story. So, there are some really interesting things about what they did in the City Primeval update, though. First, they add several subplots that are not there. The biggest one is that they make the Detroit police corrupt. They make a big deal out of this, that you have various factions in the police. There's Wendell, who's a detective. He's not really corrupt, but he's resigned. He's accepted that this is what the city is like, right? Raylan comes in from the outside, and he has not accepted it. So, though him and Wendell kind of get along, Wendell isn't really making the effort that Raylan is to get Manzel the right way. You have Maureen, or I'm sorry, let's save Maureen for last. You have Norbert, Norbert Barrel. So Norbert is kind of even more intense than Raylan, is the way that they paint him. That where Raylan will try and talk people down, and he'll only shoot if he has to, especially now it's 10 years on. Norbert is willing to go in guns blazing. He'll beat the shit out of people. He'll intimidate people, right? And because that's the way you have to do things if you want to get things done in Detroit. Uh, and then you have Maureen, who is just painted as like she has a husband and children, and she has a family, and her and Raylan kind of get along well. She lets Raylan stay with his daughter in her house, but then it's revealed that she's corrupt, right? So she's corrupt, and the entire Detroit police essentially is corrupt. Norbert isn't he's not corrupt in the sense that he's actively breaking the law, but he plays very loose with the law because he feels like that's what you need to do in Detroit. And Wendell has accepted that you're not going to be able to get done what needs to get done because Detroit is just like that. And then you have Raylan, and this is all fine in setting up a High Noon story, right? Like, in a story that is based off of High Noon, you want to have the one good lawman and nobody around him supports him, forcing him into a showdown with the villain, right? But there was some weird stuff going on too. First, they put Raylan into a relationship with Manzel's lawyer. This is really strange for a couple of reasons. Uh, One of them is that Raylan is known for, he's played by Timothy Oliphant, and he is known for getting bombshell women, and this lawyer is like in her 40s and kind of frumpy. It does not look like a fit for Timothy Oliphant's Raylan. She is not his type at all, and they don't really have a good connection with each other. Uh, Another thing is the way that they frame Manzel is that Manzel is just kind of an idiot who skates by on pure luck, and this is like almost a thematic point to what's going on, to what's happening. Now there is a scene early on where Raylan meets Raymond Cruz. Raymond Cruz is the protagonist of the original novel, and he tells Raylan a story about a guy he was going after years ago who shot into his home at one point, and they had a showdown. And he reached into his coat for something, and Raymond shot him, but the guy was pulling out a bottle opener. So Raymond went over, picked up the bottle opener, and started filing his nails. And he tells Raylan that I didn't lose a lick of sleep over this. Now Raylan is shocked by this. You know, this is a horrifying story that shows the depths of the corruption of the Detroit police. Well, at the end of the story, Raylan shoots Manzel, who is reaching into his pocket, but when he is reaching into his pocket, he's grabbing a cassette tape. And then he asks Raylan, "What'd you have to shoot me for?" And this leads to Raylan quitting the Marshal Service. So, on its face, this is why I give it a 6 of 10. I don't think this is an impossible way for the character to go. Raylan has a code. He only shoots when it's justified, and now he's no longer ruled by his rage. He's become a better person. But now he's in this situation where it seems like this guy, there's nothing they could do to get him. You know, he keeps lucking out of situations. The Detroit police is corrupt. Finally, he's in a situation with where he is in a showdown with him and he shoots him, but the guy wasn't drawing, so the shooting wasn't justified. But everybody is treating Raylan like he's some sort of hero who got his man. And so Raylan realizes that the whole system is corrupt and he has to leave. I don't like it. It makes sense, right? It's a logical way for the character to go, but it's an extremely depressing way for the character to go. The only real implication here is that Raylan's whole career was a failure and that it was a sham from the beginning, and all that effort he wasted into becoming a better person didn't really matter because the whole thing was corrupt anyway. And then I decided to do something. I decided to read the City Primeval book. And the City Primeval book is where things get really interesting because the book and the show are completely different from each other. It is like night and day. They steal some of the dialogue for the show and they rework some of the characters, but in terms of framing of themes, what the story is about, they are totally different from each other. For a start, I'm going to say that the book is much funnier and the book is much edgier and much darker. So it's both funnier, edgier, and darker. The judge, the character who is killed at the beginning of the story, he is black. He is shown to be a horrible racist and misogynist. He's racist against white people, and he's incredibly misogynistic. Manzel, the villain, who is not shown to be racist in the show, is incredibly racist in the novel, interestingly enough. And that is completely cut out from the show for some reason. I don't even know why they did. It seems like the sort of thing they would include. Carolyn, the lawyer, who, remember, is like a 30s or 40s something woman and kind of frumpy, she is described as a young 30s bombshell, right? And her character archetype is completely different. Not tough as nails, no nonsense lawyer, but this is a character archetype that is no longer used anymore, but used to be common. She's like the girl boss feminist in a men's world, but who in reality has a deep feminine side and just wants a strong man to take care of her. This used to be a very common character archetype. It has now gone completely by the wayside, but City Primeval was written in 1980. So that's the character archetype she fulfills. Manzel, the villain, actually completely outmaneuvers Carolyn at one point, breaking into her home, forcing her to cut a $6,000 check, and beating the crap out of her. And Cruz, who is the actual hero of the story, not Raylan, Cruz even berates her for this. He does sleep with her, which frankly makes more sense because she's described as a bombshell. But Cruz even berates her for this. He's like, "You said you could handle it. Is this what you call handling it?" That line would never appear in a 2023 show. Never, never, never in a million years. But the interesting things are what the focus of the story is. What are the themes of the story? So the theme of Justified City Primeval, the TV show City Primeval, is that the force is corrupt and they are hindering Raylan at every turn, his ability to properly do his job, the corruption that's around him, until finally he is forced to become a part of that corruption, and they praise him for it, leading Raylan to realize that the whole thing is rotten to the core and he has to get out. You could see 2023 shades of Defund the Police. The City Primeval book, the corruption of the Detroit police is completely absent. Completely. There is no corruption angle in this story. It's not there. So, okay, what is the story about? Does it have a theme? It does, actually, but the theme is something completely different. If any of you have seen Dirty Harry, which you should, uh, because it's a great movie in its own right, this has the same themes as Dirty Harry. The theme is that, frankly, I'm going to put it very bluntly, bleeding heart liberals and SJWs and feminists have neutered the law in such a way that it is impossible for the police to do their job. That's the actual theme of City Primeval. It opens up with Cruz getting interviewed by a female newspaper reporter who is asking Cruz why he can't connect to his feelings and if he thinks that that's why he divorced his wife. And Cruz's response is, "Yeah, well, let me tell you why I don't share with my wife." And then he tells a very graphic story about a rape and murder, about a double rape and murder that he prosecuted, right? Or that he handled. So, right off the bat, they're framing it as like the press, the bleeding hearts are completely out of touch with what actual policing really is. And then as the story continues, you learn that the reason that Manzel was not in prison. Now, in the show, Manzel committed a series of murders and there was one witness, but the witness didn't give him away, which is how Manzel walks. That is not what happens in the books. In the books, what actually happens is that Manzel walks on a technicality arranged for him by Carolyn Wilder, the lawyer. She realizes that he has a lesser charge of stealing a car in another state, so she gets him sent off. And a new law that was passed that you need to have your trial within 180 days, or else the defendant can walk free, means that when Manzel gets back in 186 days, despite the fact that there are 3 witnesses to the triple homicide that Manzel committed, he gets to walk completely free. So, right off the bat, you see the theme of the story. Manzel, and with Carolyn's help, has manipulated the law in such a way that he is able to get away with literal murder, and it prevents the police from doing their jobs. And this is what the entire story is about. They know that Manzel killed the judge at the beginning of the story. They know that he did it. They are sure of it. Manzel basically tells them that he did it at one point. But they can't actually get the proper evidence to prove it, so they can't do anything about it. The story then becomes about Manzel, who is actually smart in the City Primeval book. He's kind of an idiot in the show who gets away with things out of sheer luck, but in the book, Manzel is intelligent. And in the book, Manzel is basically betting on the fact that as long as they don't have the proof and they can't nail him for it legally with witnesses and with their I's dotted and their T's crossed, he can basically do whatever he wants. So at one point, he shoots up Cruz's house after leaving a note for him, and then basically dares Cruz to prove that he did it. Cruz then, in the book, he comes up with some sort of plan to try and plant a gun on Manziel, the gun that killed the judge. They were going to try and plant it on Manziel so that they could then use it to finally, now they finally got him for the judge's murder. But Cruz is smart enough to figure out what they're doing. Now, there is a conversation that happens in the book that's completely absent from the show, based on a subplot that was in both. But they cut out this part of the conversation, and it's very notable. So there's an Albanian gang who has a grudge against Manziel because he broke the leg of a member of their gang, right? And they're talking to Cruz about honor. And they ask Cruz, tell me, if Cruz did this to someone that you loved, what would you do? What would you want to do to him? And Cruz thought about it and he says, I want to shoot him. And he says, right, you'd want to shoot him, but what would you actually do? And he goes, I'd arrest him. And he go, exactly, you would arrest him. It's like, our honor goes deeper. We believe in a higher honor that's deeper than the law. And then the Albanian thinks for himself, I appreciate you hearing us out. Maybe you would shoot him, right? So you have this conflict set up, this higher, deeper honor that matters more than the law versus the law as it's been ruined by bleeding heart liberals, right? So the Albanians eventually lock Cruz up in a room they're just going to leave him there for like 2 months until he starves to death. And they tell Cruz this, and then they go, look, it's for the best. You can't prove he did anything. You can't get him. But Cruz lets him out. And then it finally ends on the showdown in an apartment. So Cruz is sitting there, the gun's on the table, and he tells him, I don't like the way the Albanians did it. Let's do this the right way. But he goes, pick up the gun, draw. We'll have it out right here. And Manziel goes, wait, are you serious? He's like, that's right. Let's have a shootout. Now, this whole bit of dialogue is in the show as well, but there's a very notable difference at the end of the story. So Manziel stares at Cruz, trying to get the measure of him, then shakes his head and goes, no way, I'm not doing it. You're crazy. So, going by the themes of City Primeval so far, it seems like Cruz, having reached this point, has realized that they can't get Cruz through the law, right? That's over. That whole idea is over. Sorry, I'm trying to find the page in the book, the final page. Womp, 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 womp. Where is it? Sorry. So, when you get to this final showdown, if it ever works, then I can bring it up. Here it is. So he's asking Clement to pick up the gun, and Clement won't do it. So keep in mind that the context of the scene. Raymond just let Manziel out of a lockup where he knows for a fact that Manziel was not armed. He knows when Clement Manziel shows up to the apartment that he is not armed. And Clement specifically doesn't pick up the gun. Now, the point here is that Clement believes that he has the measure of Cruz. He believes that Cruz isn't going to shoot because Cruz is a lawman. So Cruz sits there waiting, and when Manziel reaches into his pocket for a bottle opener, Cruz shoots him. To which Manziel says, you shot me. Jesus Christ, you shot me. I don't believe it. What did you kill me for? And then it says Raymond didn't answer. Maybe tomorrow he'd think of something he might have said. And after a little while, Raymond picked up the opener from the desk, the bottle opener that Manziel had pulled out, and began paring the nail of his right index finger with the sharply pointed hooked edge. Now, if you remember, Cruz tells Raylan this story with this ending in the show except that the framing in the book is very different. The framing in the book is that these two men feel like they both have the measure of the other. Uh, Cruz realizes that Manziel thinks he's invincible because these cops have to follow the law, and Cruz wants to follow the law. He realizes that getting him locked up and starving him to death isn't the way to do it. And the reason it's not the way to do it is because that is technically illegal. However, what Manziel doesn't think is that he thinks that Cruz is going to be uh constrained, right? He's not going to do what needs to be done because, he's a good guy. He's a cop. You don't just go shooting people if you're a cop. But Cruz at this point is looking for an excuse. So he waits for Cruz to reach his hand into his pocket so that he could tell the law later, I had to shoot him. I didn't know if he was drawing a weapon or not, but he wasn't. But I didn't know that. So Cruz technically is within the law. This is the poetic irony. He does what Clement's done the whole time. Clement has weaponized the law to continue committing his crimes. He believes that Cruz won't do it against him, but he's wrong. Cruz uses it against him. And this is how Cruz wins the showdown with Manziel. It's not a moment of defeat. It's not a moment of weakness. It's the high noon showdown. Cruz is the only man who's willing to do what needs to be done to take out Manziel, right? And he's not going to torture the man. He's not going to starve him to death. But ultimately, when he has the chance to take him out, as long as he has the fig leaf of the law in front of him, he's willing to use it as a weapon just like Manziel will. And if Manziel doesn't realize that, then Manziel's underestimated him. That is a completely different message. The criticism is not of corruption. The criticism is of bleeding heart liberals changing the law so that good cops can't do their jobs. Now, you could argue that the message in the modern day is more accurate to how modern police departments are, and that's fine. Feel free to make that argument. But the fact of the matter is, that is not City Primeval. You're telling a completely different story at that point. The book I highly recommend. I've just given you the ending, but yeah, I really recommend you read it. There are other things too as well. For example, a very minor character, a nightclub owner named Sweetie. Uh, the show turns him into a major character and kills him off and makes him gay. In the book, he is not only not gay, he is living with his girlfriend and he's a born again Christian. So surprise, surprise, that's how they changed him. I don't really recommend the show. It was not as bad as it could have been. I think that it was a logical character arc for Raylan to have, but it was a very depressing one. Uh, read the book, read Elmore Leonard, he's very cool, and watch the original Justified. Especially seasons 2, 4, and 6 are all fantastic. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Anthony. You will have your jet prepared for you to jet you off to the Bohemian Grove, where you shall give your TED Talk to much more important people than these plebs, namely the statues of Canaanite gods, replete with
Alright.
sacrifices, simply and
What's the
absolute.
name of the owl?
What's that? Moloch.
What was the name? No, the giant owl at Bohemian Grove.
Moloch.
That was actually Moloch.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm actually impressed. I'm not even mad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's you know, speaking as a way to tie everything together, they're asking for it. When it comes to conspiracy theories, it's just there.
Yes.
This show was about Fabricant 100. If you haven't read it yet, do read it. It is genuinely good. Like we said, it's not like it's a solid 8 out of 10. And I want to be very clear here. The landing it makes is excellent. Pretty much the best landing that they could make for the show, as it is. I hope you guys tune in next time and enjoy some things. In 2 weeks, we are going to have our Catholic versus Protestant, which will be on the subject
Yay.
of Mary. We do have to start ripping off
Oh, are
band
we
aids.
doing that? I thought we were doing purgatory.
No?
We decided on Mary. Okay,
I
it's
thought,
good.
from
I
what
could
I
do it.
understood,
I can do
okay, okay.
it. It's good. It's good.
I was talking about Mary, and looking at it, it looks like we. Yeah, I could see how you could say that, but I was still talking about Mary.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
It was a great
Uh,
conversation, though. All time best for
two
Jazz.
weeks is fine.
Yep. And and quite frankly, for Purgatory, it's as simple as yeah, there's something there. Do I think it's the mountain? No. Uh, but it's more nuanced than that. I mean, you
You
guys
got to
take Dante
understand that.
literally, right?
Yeah, well, you need to understand that my position is something along the lines of like, I don't really think you need to take a lot of this stuff literally, but then like you go, so do you? And I go, oh, pretty much. It's like I don't think that you need that. Do you think purgatory is a mountain? Well, yeah, it might be.
It's
I don't know.
metaphorically a mountain. It's it's there. How many times has
I'll
Jesus?
also say too, it's a little bit like when people talk about, oh, the fires of hell aren't literal fire, they're metaphorical fires or whatever. And I always think in the back of my mind, like, why are we even having this argument? Like, why does it matter if they're literal or metaphorical? Like, the whole point is that they're so bad, it's as if you're getting burnt by fires. Like, does it actually make a substantial difference if you go, no, it's just pain that's equivalent to being burned in an eternal fire, not literal eternal fire? It's like, okay, you just think you're getting stabbed for all eternity by pitchforks. You're not actually. Like, what? What's the difference? I don't get it. I don't get why people think that this makes it's like, oh, that's a caricature, that it's an
You know
actual
what?
physical fire. And it's like,
I
why is it a caricature? I don't get it.
right. And it's like the dude in what's his name's not Zacchaeus. Guys in hell take Lazarus. Like the dude acts like he's on fire. He's like, please just give me some water. Water's all I
Yeah,
need. Like there's clearly something. So I actually do agree to
even to the point.
purgatory. And then
What was
it's
that?
so I did agree to purgatory. And then I just start
Oh,
talking about a
oh.
Mary stream. So yeah.
Man. I'll do the Mary stream if you prefer. Whatever. 2 weeks is
Alright.
fine.
We
Uh,
gotta start doing
but
it anyway.
yeah, eventually. But yeah, the point is like it's always like I hear people say this too with like people in hell where they go, "Oh, hell, it's a character. Hell is just absence from God." And it's like, what are you trying to say? It's absence from God that is so painful. It's as if you're being burned in an eternal fire. So, I don't
What
understand what do you think you're moving the position to here?
what do you think
It's like,
absence of God means?
yeah,
Like
I don't really get like I hear apologists do this sometimes as if it's like, no, that's a
I've
caricature
said
of
it.
the position.
I've
Like,
explicitly said it, but I'm also like very
no, I've
clear that
said
it's
it.
on fire too.
No, but I mean, like, I'll say it because it's accurate. It's
Yep.
correct. What I mean is when people say it as if it's like, oh, the eternal torture thing. It's like when you word it in that way, eternal conscious torment. Like that's an exaggeration, or that's what it actually is this. And you go, but what it actually is the equivalent of eternal conscious torment, right? Like
Right.
that's what you're saying.
People are going
Like,
to be tormented here. Like there's not a question of it. Somebody is going to get tormented.
like I don't really, yeah, I've never really understood the move that people try and make there as they try thinking that it softens things when it's like, as far as I could tell, nothing is being, you can't soften it. There's
Yep.
nothing to soften.
It's
Uh,
hell, baby. H to the
yeah.
E to
All
the
right.
L to the L. That spells
Mm-hmm.
hell. Something.
It's like, oh,
Fire.
don't worry, you won't be burned in an eternal fire. You'll just be experiencing a pain so bad it's analogous to being burned in an eternal fire. That's completely different. And it's
And
like,
there's
no,
worms. Is worms eating you
the worms are
forever?
very real.
The
Yeah,
worms
the
are
worms are
real.
very real.
That wasn't a metaphor.
Yeah, it's like, oh, so is that a metaphor too? Oh no, they're real.
No, no. He thinks the worms are a metaphor. All right, guys. With that cheery note, we'll see you in a couple weeks. No, I mean we'll see you next week is what I mean. But like later. Huh.
Woo-hoo.
So yeah, no. If you want to do Mary